Me welcome Tom Mathias, Parliamentary Procedure and Action.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters, including our guest, Area Governor Randy Hochstein. If you'll remember, a couple months ago I started Parliamentary Procedure and Action with session number 1, which was on handling a motion. And in that session we learned about how to handle a motion, the 6 steps, which were: first, a member gets recognized and makes the motion. Second, another member seconds the motion without necessarily being recognized. Third, the chairman restates the motion and presents it for the membership to debate. At that point, the motion no longer belongs to the person who made it. It belongs to the assembly at large. The 4th step is that we debate the issue or the motion, alternating between pros and cons until everybody has been heard, or everybody who wishes to be heard is heard. Then step 5, the chairman calls for a vote and gives equal opportunity for those voting for and against. And step 6 is that the chairman announces the result and takes appropriate action. Today we're going to talk about, in session 2, subsidiary motions. Now at any one time, only one main motion can be on the floor. However, while that motion is pending, other motions may be made in relation to that motion, and these are called subsidiary motions. There are 7 subsidiary motions, and I'm going to be going through them today in reverse order of precedence, meaning that the first one I'm going to do has the least precedence. It cannot interrupt any of the others. So the first one is a motion to postpone indefinitely. A motion to postpone indefinitely is basically a motion to kill the main motion. Usually you would only use this in a situation where it might be detrimental to actually take a vote on the main motion, such as if you have a controversial subject that all of the members may not agree to. If you pass it, you might offend half the members, and if you don't pass it, you might offend the other half of the members. So you would postpone it indefinitely to prevent the assembly from actually taking a position on it. Also, you could also use this for situations where voting on the motion might be detrimental to your organization. Someone would make a motion to postpone indefinitely. It needs to be seconded, and it requires a majority of the assembly to pass it. It's also debatable, so you can debate the merits of postponing indefinitely. The second type of subsidiary motion is an amendment. A member would move to amend the main motion, such as the example they gave here was if you had a motion to buy a new computer, someone may amend it by adding at the end, not to exceed $1,000. Now, an amendment can also be amended. You can have an amendment and a secondary amendment, but you can't have any more amendments after that to be considered at the same time. In order to move on to another amendment, you have to vote on the previous secondary amendment. And the amendment has to relate to what it's amending. You can't amend it to change the intent entirely. Well, you can amend to change the intent, but you can't amend to change the subject. For instance, if you had a motion to support a particular political candidate, someone could amend it to replace the word support with reject, and it would still be a germane amendment. Amendments are also debatable. They also require a second, and they also require a simple majority vote. The third subsidiary amendment is, or subsidiary motion, is to refer to committee. You would use this one in an instance where a motion is made, but maybe the group doesn't know enough to make a wise decision on the matter, and they want to have somebody actually research it and come back to them and tell them more information about the motion. When you make the motion to refer to committee, you most likely want to state who the committee is and when they're supposed to come back, what they're supposed to study, and specifics on how they are to study and how they are to report it. The motion to refer to committee is also debatable, but only to the extent of debating whether or not to refer it to the committee. When you have the motion to refer to committee, you are not debating the main motion at this point. And if you refer to a committee and you have amendments pending, then the committee is also studying the amendments to the motion along with the main motion. This one is also requiring a second. It's also debatable and also requires a majority, a simple majority. The fourth subsidiary motion is postpone to a certain time. This is separate from the postpone indefinitely because this one says we're going to bring it back. This one would be used in a similar situation to referring to committee, but in this case, instead of having a committee study it out, we're just going to postpone it so that members can study the issue and come up with a decision of whether or not they want to support the motion. This could be postponing to later in the meeting, or it could be postponing to a later meeting. If it's being moved to another part of the meeting, the majority that you need is a 2/3 majority. If it's being postponed to another meeting, you only need a simple majority. It's debatable, similar to the referring to committee. It's debatable just as to whether or not you want to postpone it. You're no longer debating the main motion or the amendments, just whether or not you want to postpone it, and it does need a second. The next one is a motion to limit the debate or extend the limits of the debate. An example of this may be if you've got a standing rule that members can only speak to a motion once or twice, you might extend the limits to allow them to speak more times than that if you think that you're going to need a lot of discussion. Or if you think that this isn't going to need a lot of discussion, you could limit it so that members only have one time, or maybe only have a certain amount of time to make a comment instead of allowing them to take as much time as you want.